Hello and welcome to this presentation of what is, in my opinion, a collection of the greatest Predator artwork of all time. I'm Schizofenik, and although I'm not an art expert, I do greatly appreciate the work of some of the artists that I'll be discussing in this video. I will attempt to take you through and discuss some of the best artistic depictions of Yautja from the initial concept designs to the comics of today. So let's begin with the very first images of these creatures in Stan Winston's original concept artwork. Yes, without these beautifully penciled images, we would have had Van Damme on stilts as our intergalactic hunter, so I think we should all be very grateful to the late great Stan Winston. It was only 2 years after the original movie that the Predator made its way into the pages of Dark Horse Comics, and Chris Chandler's early work remains as one of my favourite pieces to this day. This image must have influenced the scene shot at the Eastern Columbia building in Predator 2. Another influence on Predator 2 must have been the original Alien vs Predator comic book series, and Phil Norwood's cover art was truly magnificent as he depicted the struggle between the rival creatures. By 1990, readers were introduced to the artwork of Dave Dorman, who provided us with the cover arts for Aliens vs Predator number 4. However, his defining work must have been his run on the Race War series throughout issues 1 to 4. These stunning covers present narrative enigmas that draw the reader into the comic. If you follow my channel, you will know that I'm a huge fan of Batman as well as Predator. Therefore, when readers were presented with this ultimate crossover in 1991, I was overjoyed to see the artist do justice to two of my favourite characters as they faced off. Arthur Sadam adopted the dark gothic approach normally associated with Batman and presented it to both characters, symbolising the Predator's invasion of Gotham. Throughout the 90s, we also had artists like Jordan Raskin and Den Bouvet present us with some epic pieces, as you can see here. We cannot possibly discuss Predator comics without mentioning Chris Warner, who gave us some jaw-dropping artwork in the Big Game comic book series. These included the now iconic issue 1 cover, as well as issue 2, which seemed to take inspiration from the head turn moment from the original movie. Warner would continue to produce epic artwork for the character, which included the cover for Aliens vs Predator 30th Anniversary Edition in 2020. Another artist that I'm compelled to mention solely for one piece is Dan Barry, who collaborated with Chris Warner for the Bloody Sands of Time number 1. I absolutely love the cover for this comic, and thankfully the story lives up to the imagery. This pairing would also work on the awesome images throughout the comic, which looks magnificent in every frame. Another legendary Predator artist is Ray Largo, who presented us with his hyper-real style that depicted the City Hunter in the Dark Horse Comic Presents series. Further to this, Largo would also give readers more eye candy to feast on in his Cold War and Race War cover art. Another renowned Predator artist is Derek Thompson, who knocked it out of the park with his cover art on the Bad Blood series. I really like the art on issue 2, where it seems like we are witnessing the Predator upon us as we see it through its own heat vision. In addition to his work on Bad Blood, Thompson brought us the digital cover art for Alien vs Predator The Web, as well as Old Secrets, which I really admire. This stunning piece allows us to witness a battle between the two antagonists in high detail and vibrant colour. My next artist produced this masterpiece that is one of my all-time favourites and seems to draw on the Native American aspect of Predator culture. This image was also used for the cover of Blood on Two Witch Mesa, as well as Dark Horse Comics number 20. My next artist both produced covers for my favourite Predator novel of all time, the modern classic that is AVP Prey. Nelson DeCastro would create the cover art for the original, which seems to capture the entire story within a single image. However, soon after, Dimitri Patelis would draw the art for the UK reprint, as you can see here. Different from the original, but just as awe-inspiring, this cover emphasises the sharp features of each creature, adding to their lethal appearance. In 1994, we were presented with Aliens vs Predator again, but in a different medium, being video games. Aliens vs Predator Arcade remains as my all-time favourite Yautja computer game, however the flyer art by Bengus was equally as impressive. The blue hue gives the image that video game feel that is so iconic of the 90s period. Arguably the quintessential Predator artist, John Bolton has created some real gems over the years. His run on the Aliens Predator Deadliest of the Species series spawned some timeless classics, as you can see here. Bolton had an easily recognisable visual style as he applied an almost Art Deco aesthetic to his images. In addition to this, he also seemed to depict powerful women as a possible homage to Ellen Ripley. He would continue to empower women in his art through the covers of some of the novels that he was involved with, such as Aliens vs Predator, Hunter's Planet and War. Finally, he also created the classic cover to the novelization of Big Game, applying his trademark bleak colour palette. Artists Richard Corbin, Paul Lee and Ron Randall would also produce some fantastic depictions of Yautja throughout the 90s, as you can see in these examples. Paul Lee seemed to take the idea of Predator literally on the cover of Strange Brew. This image gives the creature an almost crocodilian appearance, as its eyes break the surface of the murky river as it stalks its prey. If only the comic lived up to Lee's artwork. In 1997, Igor Kordy would introduce readers to his eerie artistic style on the covers of the Kindred series. I absolutely love this biomask, which I spoke about in my top 5 biomask videos. I'll provide a link to that here somewhere. Kordy also penciled some beautiful artwork within the pages of the classic 1718, which you can see over here. In 1998, Glenn Fabry established himself as a legendary Predator artist across the covers of the Aliens vs Predator Eternal series. I am particularly a fan of issues 1, 3 and 4, as they all possess the same colour palette, allowing us to witness these creatures and their victims in full detail. These are real favourites of mine that I never tire of looking at. I mean, the detailing in the skin and the reflection of the xenomorph in the Predator's wrist blades are just pure class. I absolutely love this artwork. Another one of my personal favourites is the cover art for Hell Come A-Walking #1 by Dean Ormston in 1998. I love the vintage, bleak, old world look that is captured on the cover, which really suits the time period that the Predator is hunting in. The red hue also gives the impression of immense bloodshed, which is depicted within the pages. A year later, Jay Lee and Dave Stewart would collaborate to bring us a much more modern looking cover on the Aliens vs Predator annual. In 2001, 3 of my favourite characters would come together in the highly anticipated Aliens vs Predator vs Terminator comic book series. In my humble opinion, the most impressive art on this run was on the cover of John Foster's paperback version, which you are seeing now. Unfortunately, the story did not live up to Foster's artwork, which beautifully intertwined the 3 characters, almost blending them into one in this infinite battle. In order to promote the movie in 2004, David Michael Beck depicted the front cover of Aliens vs Predator: Thrill of the Hunt, as can be seen in this impressive piece. Arguably another contender for best Predator video game of all time was 2005's Concrete Jungle, which also had some superb marketing art. Some of my favourite examples place the Predator against the cityscape backdrop of the fictional New Way City. The comic Prey to the Heavens also had some excellent cover art, but my preferred images were on the covers of issues 2 and 4 by Raymond Swanland. Issue 2 in particular had an almost holy feel to it that suited the title, with the ray of light hitting the Predator as it seemed to worship a trophy. This is marvellously juxtaposed with the sheer brutality and savagery of issue 4. We will now take a look at some very modern pieces that are sure to be future classics. Thankfully, the stories of Fire and Stone, as well as Life and Death, match the quality of the artwork. My favourite cover art by Lucas Graciano has to be issues 1 and 3 on Predator Fire and Stone, but I love the way that issue 4 almost subverts Phil Norwood's image in this brilliant homage. Chris Mooneyham and John Lucas would continue the artistic excellence within the pages of the comics which I've exhibited here. Similarly, E.M. Geist would match the quality of Graciano's cover art with his own more eerie style. My personal favourites that showcase Geist's horrific vision include issue 2, but mostly issue 1. Mostly. This epic story would continue with the Life and Death series, and so would the fantastic artwork, because David Palumbo's covers were truly stunning. My preferred example has to be on the cover of issue 2, which almost presents the figures as impressive statues commemorating an ancient battle. Now on to another video game franchise that had the Predator appear as a guest character and actually presented us with some fantastic artwork, as you can see here. Yes, I feel that NetherRealm Studios and Warner Bros. Games really got it right with this depiction of the classic Predator. Another excellently drawn modern comic series was the Hunter's story arc. The pairing of Doug Wheatley and Francisco Velasco proves to be a massive success, giving the creatures a very primitive and tribal feel. Velasco would continue this aesthetic, but in his own style, with his penciling throughout the comic. Agustin Padilla would take over for Hunters 2, but the excellence would continue with his modern but menacing presentation of the predator known as the Djinn. I really appreciated the way Padilla depicted the eyes of the predator through this beady gleam, truly awesome. For Hunters 3, Andy Brace would take over, but would revert back to the more primitive aesthetic adopted by Wheatley and Velasco. Despite this, Brace managed to establish his own stamp on these pages by blending the archaic with the futuristic. I mean, just look at the lights on those wrist gauntlets. Ultimately, we have been spoilt with Predator artwork over the years, and if you are a frequent viewer of the channel, then you will know that I have used many of these images in my videos. So, will future depictions of these characters live up to the high standards of those of the past? Well, based on some of the Marvel artwork, we can sure be hopeful. I hope that you enjoyed this exhibition of Predator artwork across the years. Like I said, I am no art expert, but just an enthusiast giving his opinion, so if I missed any of your favourites, then please list them in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching, take care.